Hey everyone, happy Monday. Tara Talmadge alongside Mike Irwin for our weekly edition of Ask Mike. And Mike, any good stories going to be told this week?
I don't know if there are any stories. There's one weird question that's not really a question. We'll get to it a little bit here, but I've always got advice, even if it doesn't have anything to do with Razorback football or basketball.
That's fine. I think that's why they're asking. They want the advice. So let's just get to it. Our first question is from Armand Abbey, who says, I'm glad Vanderbilt didn't win the College World Series, but I don't like Mississippi State either. Is it wrong as a Hog fan to wish that NC State had won it? I think they were the best team.
Don't you think most Hog baseball fans feel that way?
Yeah, like I wanted NC State to win.
I mean, let's go back and address the first question. Is it wrong if you're a Hog fan, do you have to automatically root for an SEC team when they're playing a non-SEC? And I say that's garbage.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of SEC teams that I don't like.
Right.
And I would rather see some other team beat them.
Yeah.
And this would be a good example of that. Mm-hmm. So no, it's not wrong. And we all know that they were probably the best team.
Yeah.
There was, the thing is, I've been sitting around racking my brain trying to figure out, like I put myself in the place of the NCAA. And I say, okay, well, how could I have rectified this? So what if in that bracket final, which was an elimination game, what if you basically let them have a week off and you let the championship series get played, and then you give another week off because you want to let Mississippi State's pitchers all get rested and everything, and so everybody's rested, and then you come back and play another championship series. You can do that. Yeah, you can do that.
I mean, you could, but what if you just, instead of doing all that, what if you just had Mississippi State and Texas there and they did their game, and then you just push back the Vandy NC State game?
You could do, there's a lot of different things that they could do, but I was just thinking, hey, you just take another week, who cares?
Yeah.
We like baseball, we'll just push it back another week and have another championship series.
Yeah, I just feel like there had to have been some other situation other than dropping them from
it's
the
not
entire
wrong.
tournament.
And this, to me, this College World Series will always be tainted. Now, look, it's pretty hard to sit here and be like a Grinch and say Mississippi State, bah, because
they were a great team.
They've never won a championship of any kind. So, you know, you throw them a bone. Okay, now you've won one.
Yeah.
But I'd still say no. There's an asterisk there always.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I don't know if NC State was the overall best team, because you think about that tournament too, though. I mean, yes, they were playing great. Mississippi State played really well in that tournament.
I think I think they would have beaten anybody. They were just on a roll.
Yeah, agreed. All right.
That's the way I feel about
it. Said76 says, do you think this whole NIL deal will lead to locker room issues? Can't imagine a backup who doesn't have endorsement deals being very happy when the more famous players start showing up with new cars, clothes, jewelry, etc.
You know, that was my initial reaction. I've said on this show 2 or 3 times, that's the problem I see.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there thinking, okay, the quarterback's going to make a lot of money, maybe a top running back. You know, linemen aren't going to make much, and certainly the backup guys, people that don't even get on the field, they're going to get zipped. So I was thinking, yeah, this is going to really cause a lot of problems. But this thing is playing out different than I thought, with things that I've never thought about before. Yeah. Let's take a look at the first Arkansas athlete who got an endorsement, Trey Knox. Okay, he's not the quarterback, he's not high profile, he's sort of a starter, but he didn't have a good year. Why did he end up with the first deal? Because he figured out in this process where they're teaching them how to market themselves, he figured out a way to market himself. And, you know, remember when he had this husky dog and he lost it and everybody was running around trying to find it for him, and then he found it and it was all on social media? Well, I don't know if he contacted them or they contacted him, but the PetSmart people went, hey, that's great.
That's a great
College guy, football player, loves his dog got away, oh, he got his dog back. And they thought, man, this would be a great way to market PetSmart. Guy loves his dog.
No, absolutely.
So it doesn't have anything to do with him being a great athlete or anything. And so there are other examples. I can't remember them specifically, but there are other examples of athletes reaching out to these people, or in some cases, companies reaching out to them because they looked at their social media profile, saw they had all these Twitter followers or Facebook or Instagram, and went, wow, you know, a lot of people like this person.
Yeah.
And so that's somebody that we would want to endorse our product because they clearly have connected with a certain audience. So the way this is playing out so far is the guys that are making money, guys and girls that are making money, are people that know how to be businessmen.
How to market themselves.
They just know how. This is capitalism. This is not athletics, where certain rules exist in the world of athletics. In capitalism, I mean, the guy that works the hardest gets it.
Gets it, yeah.
This is when I was like 2 years old. The first movie I ever remember, my parents took me to this movie, and I don't remember the movie, but there was a cartoon, that old Aesop's fable about the grasshopper and the ant. Do you remember that thing?
Nope.
Well, it was a story. It was a cartoon. It was a Disney cartoon, but the grasshopper was lazy and just sat around while the ant stored stuff for the winter and did all this cool stuff. And then winter came and the ant had all of his little food down in the bottom of but the grasshopper was in deep stuff because he didn't save anything. So the lesson is work, market yourself, be aggressive, and it's got nothing to do with you being a hotshot athlete. Now, I still think, some of these guys, because if you're a Heisman quarterback or whatever, or a Heisman candidate, you're probably going to have more people interested. But it's not going to be as much a case of some people have no shot as I thought.
Right.
If you know how to market yourself and you've got an angle and you can approach these people, I think it will work.
And that's exactly what you and I talked to Hunter Yurachek about.
Yes.
Just the other day, and he brought up the same question, and he was basically like, well, you know what? That's a good lesson in life.
It's the way life works.
Not everyone is going to get paid equally. You have to work for what you want. And if you don't work hard for it, then you're probably not going to get it.
So again, this whole thing is playing out totally different than what I thought it was.
I agree.
Because it's brand new, and we're just now going through it, and it's kind of cool, really. I thought I was initially kind of against it. Now I see.
Yeah.
And you look, the reaction of the athletes, where they now realize they can.
Yeah.
They can make money off of what they're doing, which, in most parts of society, you could do that.
Yeah.
I've made this point before. If you're just an ordinary student, you can make money. It's the athletes that have been stuck in this thing where they could, you've got your scholarship.
They can't do anything,
But I've got my scholarship, but this guy may have one too, but he's not an athlete.
Right.
And he can make money on the side. So now they're all happy.
And also, I was kind of under the impression, kind of like the person who asked this question, that it was just going to be new cars, clothes, jewelry, glitz and glam. And
well, it
not
could be
really
jewelry if you buy it, but they're not just going to throw jewelry at you.
Exactly. So it's not exactly, at least it isn't yet, and we're still fairly early into it, so we'll see how it develops.
Still evolving.
All right, Muskogee Hog fan points out that our total offense in the first 5 games, Mike, averaged 369 yards, and then in second 5 games, our average went up to over 413 yards. Do you expect a full offseason of preparation, practice, and conditioning will continue this trend of improving their offensive performance?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the reasons they got better is I think the offensive line got better as the season rolled along, and I think, Felipe Franks kind of got in sync with the receivers, and the running game was working and all that stuff. But I point to what happened when Sam Pittman was here as an assistant coach, because from year 1 to year 2, the big difference was the offensive line, and then year 2 to 3 was the real big difference.
Yeah.
And he's the head coach. He's not the offensive line coach, but I think this is where you're going to see this team improve first. And we're already seeing it. The offensive line is bigger. They're bringing bigger guys in. Tyquise Crawford's like 340 or whatever. He's manhandling guys in spring football. So this was what happened when Pittman was here before. That team that eventually they ended up going to the Liberty Bowl and winning that and had a 5-3 SEC record, which is the best in years. And I think this is where Pittman will take you.
Yeah.
He will give you an offensive line that can allow you to have a running game. It will allow you better pass blocking to protect your quarterback, and this year we may need that because you've got an inexperienced quarterback. He hasn't been a starter before. I mean, I think he started one game, Felipe Franks, in the Missouri game. But yeah, I think this is where you're going to see this continued improvement. The offensive line improves, and then other areas start improving as a result of that, and that is kind of the Pittman way of doing things.
Well, let's hope so. That would be great. All right, Mousetown has our next question on Twitter and says, it concerns me that COVID cases are going back up. It concerns me that vaccinated athletes are still getting COVID. what are the chances that we're heading right back into another messed up college football season?
Yeah, it may look that way right now, especially with what happened at the College World Series, but I'm going to try to explain why I think there's a difference here. First of all, let's take a look at vaccinated athletes. The way the vaccination works is it doesn't keep you from getting COVID. What it does is it's just another way to supercharge your immune system, so if you get it, you're probably not going to get sick. From what I've been able to read, what happens to a lot of people that get COVID that are vaccinated, they don't even know they have it.
Yeah.
Unless they get tested, and most of the time they don't, so they've had it but don't know they have it. So you can translate that to athletes. Now let's take a look at the policy that was in place by the NCAA at the College World Series. They didn't start off testing everybody.
Yeah.
The idea was that if somebody developed symptoms, you would test them. And then if they tested positive, they had to be isolated, but then the contact tracing at that point only went to unvaccinated athletes.
Yeah.
Now they veered away from that a little bit on that second where they canceled everything with North Carolina. But that's a policy that I think a lot of schools will adopt this fall. Compare it to last year. Last year, here's what happened. You got tested 3 times a week.
Right.
If anybody tested positive, they were out for, it started off 2 weeks and then it turned into 10 days. But they basically had to test negative when they before they could come back.
Oh, yeah.
But what happened was, what really knocked a lot of these games into either a postponement or eventually a complete cancellation was all the contact tracing.
Yep.
Because you might have 3 people test positive, but by the time you get through going through the contact tracing, you got 12 people missing from a game.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened to Arkansas against LSU. They technically were above the number, but they ended up with a bunch of contact trace guys that were out in a specific area like defensive line and ended up costing them. Okay, here's where I think the difference is going to be. I think they're not going to test anybody just to test.
Okay.
I think what's going to happen is, just like at the College World Series, they will tell all of these athletes, be on the lookout for any symptoms, even if you've been vaccinated.
Yeah.
If you get sick, if you feel like any of these symptoms are placed, we will then test you. If you test positive, we're going to put you under a doctor's care because we don't want you to get worse.
Right.
Then they're going to go to who's not vaccinated and say, you have to be tested. I think they're going to leave the people vaccinated alone, which is going to eliminate the contact tracing part, which knocks people out of games.
So you think if, like, say that you're vaccinated, I'm not, and then if we are hanging out here,
I think if you were hanging out with a guy that had it and another guy was hanging out, but he's vaccinated and you're not, they're going to test you. They're probably not going to test the guy that was vaccinated.
Okay.
Because the guy with vaccinated, here's the issue. Until he shows symptoms,
I get it.
There's no reason to test him. You test him only if he shows symptoms.
Okay.
I think this makes things far less complicated. It eliminates all that contact tracing, knocking 14 guys out a week of a game. And that's why I don't think you're going to end up with these games being postponed, canceled, or whatever. And it will do here's the other part that it will do. It's not going to take very long for these guys to realize, wait a minute, if I'm not vaccinated and Joe Blow over here gets it, even if he's vaccinated, if he comes down with it and I'm around here, they're going to contact trace me and hold me out because I'm not vaccinated, because I'm not protected. So it will encourage the vaccination rates to go up. Now, Hunter Yurachek told me, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they were at about 85% for most sports, including football. At 85%, you stop having to wear a mask.
Yep.
Grant Morgan told me that the linebackers' rooms, they don't have to wear a mask anymore because they're up above that number. He didn't say who these other groups were, but there's a couple of them that weren't. But he said now they're all getting vaccinated because they want to not wear a mask too.
Right.
So there's 2 reasons to get vaccinated now. You don't have to wear a mask, and you're not going to get contact traced just because you were around somebody that came down with COVID.
Okay.
Because again, if you're vaccinated, unless you get sick, there's no reason for it, because the vaccination itself tends to keep you from getting sick. Now, are there any circumstances under which you could? Yes.
Yeah.
My wife knows somebody whose father was vaccinated twice, but he had a lot of other conditions, and he got COVID and he got sick and died.
Okay.
So it can still happen, but he had pneumonia, he had some other issues. With an athlete, again, they're not going to test you if you've been vaccinated unless you show symptoms, and that is the key.
So you think it won't be like another NC State situation where they end up testing you because you were around them?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not this fall. I think they've learned their lesson on that. There's no point in testing somebody and freaking out and making them go sit out for a week when they're not sick.
I agree.
Okay. So that's the part with the athletes. Now the part with fans, because he said messed up season. Part of being messed up was the fans. You had nobody at the games. 18,000 people at a Razorback game. Right now they're planning to have full capacity.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the way I think that's going to develop. Let's say the second game of the year, the Texas game, probably a full capacity crowd, probably 75,000 or whatever. I think what will happen there is the state will take a look at whether or not the week after that game there's an uptick in COVID cases that they can trace to people going to the game.
Yeah.
And if they did that, then there might be some adjustment made. I don't think they're going to reduce crowds, but they might step in at some point and say, okay, you got to show vaccination before you come in here, because they're not doing that right now. They have no plans. Or they might do the temperature check just to make sure you're not sick as you go into the facility. But here's the other part of that. The CDC has known since maybe last September, I can't remember when I first read this, that COVID mainly does not spread outdoors. It spreads, and I've talked about this before, it spreads indoors. And now, after a year and a half of this, they pretty much concluded that a lot of this spread came inside your own home.
Yeah.
Somebody gets it, they come back, they've got it, they're around everybody else in the house, they're indoors. And the key there is how long you're around somebody, not just that you're around them. And that happens inside your own home. So I personally, based on what I've read and what I've observed for the last year, I don't think people are going to get COVID from going to football games outside. There's all this stuff about it. Supposedly the sun will kill it within 5 or 10 minutes after it is exposed, like lands on a surface or whatever. But we'll have to see. I'm not saying that I know for sure.
Yeah.
But again, I think if you have a problem with people getting more cases as a result of full capacity games, then they'll make an adjustment. I don't think it's going to happen outdoors. I think what you might have to worry about is basketball next season. If it's still around then and there are enough people that have it, it might cause a problem indoors.
Still planning on full capacity for that too, though.
They are.
So let's hope that doesn't get messed up.
But that's so far from now, it's really hard to talk about.
No, I agree. All right, Texas Grocery Hog has our next question and says, the Jeff Long era didn't end well at Arkansas or Kansas. What is Jeff Long doing nowadays, and do you ever see him having an athletic director position for a Power 5 school again?
As far as I know, and I've checked all throughout the internet, I can't find any evidence that he's working anywhere else. That the last job that he has listed on the internet would be Kansas. Here's the thing, he's almost 62. Let's go back and look. He was at Arkansas, I think, 9 years. He started off making $500,000 a year. By the time he left, he was making $750,000. That's a pretty good chunk of change. When he got fired, they technically owed him, I think, $4 million. But what they do is they pay that in monthly installments, and he was only unemployed about a year. So I think he got about $1 million. So it was like he was continuing to be employed.
Right.
So he's still making good money. Then he goes to Kansas, salary jumps up to $1.5 million a year. Woo. So he's making good cash there. So he was there 3 years, then he got fired. There apparently they worked some sort of agreement or whatever where he gets $2 million from that.
Yeah.
So if you add all that up, he sounds like to me a guy that could do early retirement, right?
Yeah,
at age
no
62.
kidding.
A lot
You would
better
think
than,
so.
Yeah. So now here's the thing about hiring him. It's not like he went out personally and did something really terrible.
No.
Here's the problem. When you study if you studied his resume and you talk to people where he's been, things have happened while he was the AD. Bobby Petrino, okay. Jeff Long was portrayed as being this big tough guy because he got rid of Petrino with his mistress. But he's the guy that was the AD that signed off on Petrino hiring this woman. Yeah. And then you find out later, oh, wait a minute. And his excuse, well, I didn't know anything about that.
Right.
Okay. Now, what happened to Les Miles at Kansas? They found out these allegations came from LSU, from before he went to Kansas, that he had acted inappropriately to some student co-eds, and they were complaining. Okay, Jeff Long said, well, I didn't know anything about that.
Right.
You vetted him, hopefully, when you hired him. Did you look into his background enough? How did you miss that?
Yeah.
And then there's the infamous pole dancing incident at the basketball
I'm sorry,
game.
that's still the funniest
where
thing.
you approve this halftime show that involves Snoop Dogg and pole dancing.
They were acrobatic dancers is what they were listed as.
We all know what that really was.
Yeah.
And so Jeff Long again, well, I didn't know they were going to do that. So there's too much of this I didn't know stuff.
Yeah.
And that tends to not play very well when you're somebody in charge of hiring a guy. Well, let's look at his background. Well, he didn't know, he didn't know, he didn't know. Okay, well, we don't want this guy. So I can't say he won't get another job, but at 62, well off, why would you mess with it?
Exactly. It's not like he's hurting financially right now.
He didn't do anything terrible himself. He just kind of was asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Grober Kriegschwein, I hope I pronounced that right, says, my wife is due with our 4th kid on July 5th here in Germany. I'm 2 weeks from 45 years old. No question, just want some empathy. Is this the one you were talking about at the beginning of the show?
I don't really think he needs empathy.
It's not really a question.
Because this is just a weird, wacky theory of mine.
Okay.
But it's based on my own personal experience. I was 32 when my first son was born. Mm-hmm. I was too mean.
You were?
Yeah, I mean, I was tough on him.
Okay.
Now, when my second son came along 6 years later, I'm 38, I did a better job. I'd learned.
Well, yeah.
I was older.
I feel like that's most people, though, with their first
so
and
what I'm
second
saying
kid.
is he's 45, he's having his 4th child. This ought to be a breeze. I mean, he's got it figured out. He's been through all the other things with the other kids. Now he's more mellow. He's not as tough. You know, look, it's like, how do you ask anybody that's been a parent and then ask them to compare being a grandparent to being a parent? They're just nicer. Their grandkids like them a lot better than their kids
actual
do.
kids?
Absolutely. My grandkids think my wife is awesome.
Yeah.
My 2 boys were like, she was mean.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just think he doesn't deserve or doesn't need, I don't know about deserve, but he doesn't need empathy because at 45, he should be a great dad.
Man, 4th kid, though.
That is really, that's unusual.
Yeah, at 45?
Yeah, to have another child at 45, but I guess.
Well, hey, if that happened today, July 5th, congratulations.
Congratulations, and you don't need empathy because you're going to be a great dad for the 4th time.
For the 4th time, yes. All right, Eddie Lynn wants to know, Mike, what do you think about Bobby Portis making the NBA Finals?
Well, I'm not a big NBA fan, but it obviously helps Arkansas. Arkansas fans love it. They've been following this, and it's great. Here's the thing I like about it, because I don't like the NBA much, but it's because of the NBA athletes.
Yeah.
Too many of them are political. They get into a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with athletics. Portis is not like that. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that's always worked hard when he was here. He wasn't anybody that got in trouble.
Yeah.
He did his job. There was no issues. He didn't make the news for weird reasons.
Yeah.
And we always liked him because he was really good with the media.
That's good.
I mean, he'd always do interviews, and he was nice and had a lot of stuff to say. So, and the main thing was this guy has always worked. Mm-hmm. He works to get better.
Yeah.
And so he's put himself in a position to do this, and he's succeeding as a result of it. And isn't that what we all want? If somebody works hard and deserves success, we like to see them get success, because not everybody that works hard ends up successful. So that's why I like it, and I hope they go the whole way.
The underdog mentality is what I think he tweets out a lot.
Yeah.
You know, he's the underdog, and now he's achieving. So.
And he's a good guy. So yeah, we like that.
All right, Patches O'Hogahand says, as a fan of both the Razorbacks and the St. Louis Cardinals, the Cardinals have not drafted a Razorback since Zach Cox. Is there an issue with the Cardinals organization and Dave Van Horn? Would love to see Franklin or Cops in a Birds on the bat uniform.
So I had to go with our Cardinals expert, Jason Carroll, because I don't follow the Cardinals in their recruiting. And he assures me it doesn't have anything to do with Dave Van Horn, that what actually is going on here is the Cardinals tend to draft guys that are coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. They don't tend to draft college guys. They draft younger players. They have drafted apparently some Arkansas signees and taking them away from Arkansas, but he doesn't think that had anything to do with Van Horn, like they're sitting, let's take away some of their recruits. So as far as he knows, and I'm good with it.
Yeah.
There's no evidence that this has anything to do with Dave Van Horn.
I mean, at the same time, if a player's good, a player's good. I don't think your grudge with
Right.
someone is going to stop
Sure.
you from drafting someone.
Right.
So, all right. Lifetime Hog fan says the 60s was a great decade in the Texas rivalry. Texas won 6 to Arkansas's 4, but there were some epic games. Could you comment on the 60s and its place in the history of Hog football?
Yeah, I mean, how long has Razorback football been around? 217 years, something like that.
Something like that.
I haven't checked lately, but there's never been a decade like it, ever.
Yeah.
You can go back, and we've got these press guides that have every season all the way back to 1894. There's never been a 10-year period like that. In the 60s, Arkansas won a national championship in football, came within a few points of winning 2 more. So that could have been 3 national championships in one decade. I read somewhere several years ago that Arkansas was either number 3 or number 4 team in the nation through the decade in terms of wins.
Wow.
So they were a top 5 program,
Yeah.
not just 1 year or 2 years, just through that whole decade.
That's crazy.
Now they had 1 or 2 off years,
Of
but if you
course.
combine the
Yeah.
whole thing, they would have been rated somewhere around 3rd or 4th best team for the decade. There's never been any other 10-year period like that. And I keep thinking maybe there will be sometime in the future.
You'd hope so.
We would like to see that, but that was the best there's ever been.
All right, Muskogee Hog fan is back with another question for you, Mike. He asks, given how we are doing in football recruiting so far, what do you think about our chances of landing somewhere between number 15 and number 20 in the 247 rankings when we close the books on the 2022 class?
It just seems like to me about maybe a month or month and a half, 2 months ago, I can't remember when, Arkansas kind of got up. They were kind of nosing in toward the top 10. It was like 12th maybe, something like that. The highest number I can remember in a long time. And I asked Otis, have they ever been ranked that high before? And he said he didn't remember it. Now they've dropped back down. The last thing I saw was 19th. What they started off doing is they landed a bunch of 4 stars. Lately, they've been getting 3 stars. Now, they made a big deal last week about, I think, 2 or 3 3-star guys. And Otis says they're all really good. But if you're just technically ranking Arkansas with other schools in terms of recruiting, that would tend to push you down a little bit. So can they end up 15 to 13 in that range again? They probably were going to have to get some more 4 stars to do that. If they continue on this latest trend to land 3 stars, I'm just going to take a guess and say they'll be somewhere around 20th. And that's good because they started off, I don't remember that first year, but it was like in the 30s maybe. Then it got up last year, low 20s. You know, like 25, 26 somewhere. And so the thing you want is a progression.
Right.
And that's what I see so far with Sam Pittman. And look, where this class ends up is going to have a lot to do with what kind of season they have.
True.
Because that's where you can come back after you have success and maybe turn somebody that was going somewhere else, a 4-star, a 5-star, or whatever, that's uncommitted.
Same time, though, stars, do you think they actually matter?
Well,
they don't always translate.
In individual cases, no. You can't say, oh, this guy's a 3-star, he's
going to be the best or something.
This guy's a 5-star, he's got to be awesome.
Right.
No, it doesn't translate. Now, if you just took it overall recruiting, there's no question. You look at Alabama, they're recruiting 5 stars and 4 stars. So it's the number of 4-star and 5 stars that you get. That makes a difference.
Well, your odds are better that way.
Right.
But
I certainly don't think that you are necessarily not going to win because you recruited 6 or 7 3-star athletes because those guys could all be good players.
Exactly. All right. Austin Hog fan has our last question for you, Mike. He says, how many fall seasons have you more anticipation for than this one, with football on its way back and hopefully competitive in every game? Men's and women's basketball could be top 10 good.
You know, I've done this for 45 years. I don't remember going into another academic year, which we've crossed over the previous academic year is over. We're in that dead period where nothing started yet. But we're about to enter now the 2021-22 season. I don't remember one that looked this good overall in the overall athletic department, but there's another area where it could be unprecedented. I'm saying that basketball, men's baseball, and women's track, whether it's cross country, indoor, outdoor, all three of them could win a national championship next year. Doesn't mean they will, but they could. If you had a season in which you had 3 national championships in 3 different sports, that would be pretty special.
Could you imagine?
So I don't think it so much has to do with football. I think all Razorback fans are really looking for in football is just get better, maybe get to a bowl game, win some non-conference games, win 3 or 4 SEC games, and get to a bowl game. Just continue to show progress. But then people are just going to start going nuts when we get close to basketball season. With all the guys that he's brought in here.
Oh, I know.
It's like, to me, there's too many guys, too much talent.
It's almost a completely different team.
Like,
you got
who's going to not score 20 points a game? They can't all score 20 points a game.
That'd be awesome.
So that looks good. I just continue to believe baseball. Here's what I've noticed about baseball. If you go on social media, there's just wackos on there. They're just hammering Van Horn.
Yeah.
This doesn't matter. The season didn't matter. I don't care. Those are internet people that wear their feelings on their sleeves. There was a specialness to that season that they've never had a season like that before.
Absolutely.
There's never been a regular season in Razorback, going all the way back to the early part of DeBryan being here. There's never been a team at Arkansas that was ranked #1 anywhere close to that long. Never been a team that won the SEC and SEC tournament championship.
Yeah.
They dominated the regular season. And so there's a value in that.
Absolutely.
Now I think maybe you're going to see them come back and go, now watch what we do.
Yeah, that would be good.
Now we're gonna show you meatballs that don't think that was special, how special it can be. That's just a feeling that I have. I don't understand how people can think
that wasn't special.
There are some people that just say, if you're not going to the College World Series and win it all, then it's terrible.
Man.
It's just expectations for where that program is right now.
Exactly. They're set so high.
But I just have a feeling they're going to do something really, really. It's going to be a different kind of special next year.
Right. I don't think it'll be exactly the same, winning every single SEC series.
Just better at the end of the year.
Right. That's all. That's what really matters, though. Let's be real. At the end of it. All right. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Ask Mike. From Mike Irwin, I'm Tara Talmadge. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next Monday.